This month's podcasts are sponsored by Aubergine Legal. Do you sometimes worry that your business isn't meeting all its legal compliance requirements and wonder if you're ticking all the legal boxes? Are you losing sleep worrying about a piece of legislation that you may or may not be complying with? Perhaps you need some help with your client contracts or your data protection compliance. Or maybe you're worried that your website doesn't have the right documents or legal notices in the right place. Perhaps you have a brand that you want to protect with a trademark. How about if you could outsource it all and eliminate all of your worries? If so, then get in touch with Aubergine Legal, a friendly commercial legal consultancy offering practical and clear commercial legal advice without the overwhelming legal jargon, taking the worry away and helping you to protect your business and minimise your risks. Aubergine offers a free 30-minute consultation if you have any questions or want to find out if they can help, and you can access this link and book your free 30-minute call via the link in the show notes.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Ideas to Life podcast. Practical advice and inspiration to help you create and sell your own physical products. Here's your host, Vicky Weinberg.
Hi, as always, thank you so much for being here. So if you have a small products business, or perhaps you're just in the process of starting one up or even just thinking about it, you might be in a position where you're doing everything yourself. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, in the beginning, perhaps it does, but in future, it's always good if you can outsource a little bit, get a little bit of help and get some time back. So today I'm speaking to Melissa Gage, and Melissa is the founder of SpareMyTime, which is an innovative business support and virtual assistant service for small businesses and professionals, as well as a franchise model for those looking to work flexibly while still having the support of a network. So as Melissa will explain, she hires mums to work in her business, and they provide VA support in all kinds of areas. And today we're going to talk specifically about products businesses and the kind of things that you could perhaps outsource to a VA in your business to free up a bit more time for yourself. So this is, I think, a really interesting conversation. Personally, I'm terrible at outsourcing, have good intentions, but sometimes it just seems easier to hold on to things. And we're going to talk through some of the concerns people have, some of the reasons people don't outsource, and Melissa's going to really help us understand the benefits of getting some help when you need it, and when you can afford to do that, and when you're at the right stage. So we cover a lot, so I'm not going to talk anymore, and instead I'm going to introduce you to Melissa. So hi Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Hello.
So could we start please if you give an introduction to yourself, your business, and what it is that you do?
Well, I'm Melissa Gage, and I'm the founder of a business called SpareMyTime. We provide virtual assistants, predominantly in admin, bookkeeping, and social media. All of our VAs are mums, and so the reality is they are all upgrading their skills. They're all incredibly experienced, but because of the pressures of childcare, we are assisting small businesses to get exceptional support at the same time of creating flexible working for them.
Amazing, thank you. So obviously I've invited you on here to talk about the kind of things that a VA could help a business with. So I'm assuming that some people will be at the stage where they haven't even thought about ever sort of wanting help. So actually maybe that's the best place to start. So when is a good time to start working with a VA, would you say?
Well, I mean, the reality is the best time to start working with a VA is before you actually need one, because as soon as you start feeling the pressure that you need additional hands on decks, you are probably actually losing momentum, and it will take you a certain amount of time to be able to pick that speed up. And also you probably won't have the structures and flows in place in your business to be efficient. However, that's obviously an ideal world. So I have sort of two little exercises that I give people to work out if it will be efficient and effective and economical for them to start outsourcing. Now, as a rule of thumb, a VA is always the most economical way to get support, because the reality is that you're not having to pay any fixed costs. they will be pretty self-sufficient. They have their own computer, they have their own systems and stuff like that. And they also have a vast array of experience because they'll be working with other people at the same time. So on that basis, it's always an economical choice. However, the two little exercises that I suggest to people that they do when they're thinking, do they need a little bit of support, are these. And the first one is work out what your own hourly rate is. Now, that might be very simple if you charge on an hourly rate, or it could be that you work out how much you want to earn in the year and you divide it by 2080, and that will come back to your hourly rate. Now, if your hourly rate is £40 an hour, for example, look at what a VA would cost on an hourly rate to do those tasks that you would be doing which aren't revenue generating, because it's key. Your principal business activity is what you need to focus on. Anything that distracts you from your principal activity is not making you money. So those are the tasks that you're going to look at outsourcing. So for example, the average rate of a VA is about £25 an hour in the UK for admin. If you're earning more than £25 an hour, then it's worth outsourcing anything that is not revenue producing. So first of all, work out your hourly rate and then just do some basic maths. The second exercise that I would think is worthwhile is just spend a couple of days writing every task that you do, and then go through that list and work out which of those tasks you need to do. They're either urgent, revenue generating, or you're the only person who has the skills who can do them. And then work out from the rest of the list what you could outsource. And in that working out what you could outsource, you'll probably work out things that don't actually need to be done as well. So just bin those. And by the time you've done those two exercises, you'll have quite a good idea of what you can feasibly outsource and be really specific, and if it's going to be cost effective for you to do so.
Okay, thank you. And by doing those exercises, would that give you an idea of how much time you needed a VA for as well? Because I mean, some VAs I know charge by the hour, some want you to sort of commit to a block a month. How would you work out sort of what kind of time commitment you needed from somebody?
Well, that really depends on their experience. So if you have a really experienced VA, the reality is that they will statistically work 3 times quicker than you will. So if you're spending hours going through your emails, the reality is your VA has a skill set to be able to monitor and manage your emails at a much quicker rate than you would be able to. So it has to be a dialogue that you have with them. It also depends on your VA, as you said, that they might do day blocks or half day blocks, or they might do hourly blocks, all of which can be very successful. It again has to be a conversation with how they work. You might find if you take a day block, just be mindful that you need to work out what your rate of return is on that. If you're going to have somebody for 8 hours effectively, which is a day, how quickly a task going to be turned around, how much of that day you're going to have allocated to your tasks, because they'll probably be managing more than one client, and just exactly what does that mean. Obviously the most transparent way of doing things is on an hourly rate, but not everybody works in that way. But really it's a conversation to have with your VA, because they will know how quickly their skill sets lend towards the task that you're asking them to do.
Thank you for that. And I didn't actually consider the fact that an experienced VA could do things quicker, because probably a lot of us, there are definitely tasks that I feel I can do very well and I can do very quickly. And of course, somebody else could do them. But then you think, it will take time to explain how to do it. And you think, so it's probably better I do it myself, because it will take time to explain how someone else needs to do it. Hadn't actually thought that, yes, of course, you need to invest that time, but afterwards, they probably will be able to do it quicker and more efficiently than you do. Hadn't even considered that. So thank you, because I think that's a really good insight.
We see it the whole entire time, and it's a lot of people put off getting a VA because they're scared of that period of trying to acclimatize them to their business and getting them up to speed on their systems and all those kind of things. But the reality is if you've got an experienced VA, they would have seen a number of systems already. They might have better systems that they can suggest because they're working with a number. And also, and this is the way that I explain it, because this is how I kind of look at my brain to, the girls who I work with. Everybody's brain works differently, and hence everybody has different skill sets. Most people who lend themselves towards being a VA have brains that work in a different way to, say, some people who are maybe more artistic or sales orientated or whatever it might be. But the way that I describe it, my brain feels like cooked spaghetti. That's how my brain works. It's grasshopper. I think very quickly. I do, I roll things really quickly. I get things done very quickly. But the majority of girls who work with me as VAs, I always think their brains are straight spaghetti. So they look at tasks and they will absolutely streamline them. They will see, that glimmer of light that I wouldn't have seen because I'll be off doing something else or being distracted, or my magpie brain will be off somewhere else, which is probably a typical sign of an entrepreneur. But the reality is they look at something and they see a very, very clear system and flow. And that's why they can do things, what you might be able to do. You probably can do it, but they can just do it better, quicker, and probably more precise. And it's not saying that anyone's better than anyone else. It's just a different way of doing things.
That's really interesting. Thank you. And so what are the kind of things that a VA can help your business with?
It depends what your business is, number one. And it depends who you're talking to, number two. So VA is a massively, massively, massively broad, sweeping spectrum. And, in our business, we've got admin, we've got bookkeeping, we've got social media, and we put them into those silos because they're totally different disciplines. But some VAs might be able, we've got one VA who works on every single discipline, which is quite unusual, but a lot of VAs can do a lot of stuff. If you're talking about a product-based business, it can be anything from, incredibly practical stuff, just helping you with orders, helping you make sure that things, do the completing finishing so that they can make sure that your client's experience is seamless, which, whilst that's an incredibly important part of the process and is the difference between being, A class and being C class. You could have the same product, but if you have that wonderful customer flow that it just looks absolutely seamless, it puts you into that sort of different kind of level, doesn't it? When somebody thinks, God, that was just, that was just really slick. That is the kind of thing that people can help you with. Our girls do a lot of like product analysis, research. We've just had somebody doing some really wonderful packaging research for one of our product-based businesses, and that's again taken her business from, she's got a beautiful product, but the research that Rosie's done on her behalf has got these wonderful packages and it's taken it into that sort of luxury field. So those things that, whilst you could do it yourself, somebody else who it's their role to do will just do it better because they don't have any distraction.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
And that's before you start talking about, doing your invoicing and your bill and all that kind of stuff. But in a very practical term, if you want your business to be just run very smoothly and reflect incredibly well to clients, it gives it a big edge.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, and also, VAs can obviously help with things like customer service and answering customer emails and queries. Things that I've had VAs do for me in the past as well include, so you can get VAs that maybe specialize in some of the software you might be using as a products business. So something like Shopify or eBay or Amazon, if you want people to upload listings for you or update your inventory or anything like that. And actually, if you're listening to this and you're just getting started, even things like contacting suppliers, if you're looking for quotes, if you can provide a list and you can ask a VA to do that work for you, because while it's fairly, it's not particularly difficult, it does take time, going back and forth and keeping on top of it.
We're actually doing exactly that for somebody at the moment who's got they've got a child's bath product, beautiful product, and actually just won a load of awards. But Alice, one of our girls, she's calling around all the buyers, luxury buyers, and she's working out what the processes are to be able to get the product into them, which absolutely anybody can do, but the reality is it takes time and dedication, and and when that's your role, you will take it to the next level, won't you? You will make sure you do it incredibly well, because that is what your focus is, and that is what and that's what you're there to deliver. So yes, that's a really good one, and we do get asked for that quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything that's going to take you a lot of time, and this is something I've learned from my own experience, anything that's going to take you a lot of time and takes you away from the things that only you can do is worth considering investing in, because you can spend hours on tasks that are important, but actually, you don't necessarily need to be the one to do them.
Absolutely. And going back to your comment about software, it is a really good one, but that in that circumstance, we do a lot of stuff with software, and particularly integrating it with things like Xero, which is an accounting platform. A lot of people come to us with Shopify, and probably their books in not the straightest way that they would have liked them to be, or the neatest form that they would have liked to, but they wouldn't have understood the different automations that you can have, or those little things that by talking to someone who is effectively seeing it in a lot of different other scenarios, you can actually access a greater skill set and a greater uses of software that you're working. So yes, it absolutely goes down to the uploading photos, or just those manual tasks which quite frankly you don't need to do yourself, to actually being able to utilize your software to a much better degree, because you're using someone who uses it a lot.
Yeah, and I'm guessing as well, another advantage is that you're working with someone who's worked with other people and is probably a lot more familiar with some things than you are, especially if you're just starting out. And even if you've been going for a while, there's, if someone's working with something day in, day out, or they've worked with multiple clients, chances are that they're going to know a few things that you don't, which is invaluable. I remember it was a while ago now, somebody showed me how to integrate my inventory management system with all the platforms that I sell my products on. Yeah. It was just amazing, not having to actually manually go in and say, I've only got 8 of these now, or this one's sold out, but just having everything integrated. It was like, that one thing saves so much time, and I never ever would have even thought about it and knew how to do it. And to someone else, that was such a simple thing that probably took half an hour, and it's just saved so much time. So yeah, absolutely. I'm all for getting help.
And part of that is actually just knowing that software is available, because why should you know, really, quite frankly, because that's not your business. That's something that facilitates your business, but that's not your business. So why should you be an expert in everything surrounding what lets you do your business? You shouldn't be scared to help ask people for help and ask people for ideas. And that's not just on using a VA, but that's asking other people. And that's why things like podcasts are fantastic, because it's this sharing of knowledge and experience. But the reality with a VA is that they are surrounded by this the whole entire time, and they're surrounded by people's problems, which is a very, very good learning place. So never be scared to ask beyond the kind of the just outsourcing what you don't need to do yourself. Never be scared to ask your VA what they think, what they've seen, what have they seen work with other people, because you're sitting with a treasure trove of experience there, and they might have some gems that you just are not aware of.
That's really interesting. Thank you. So we're definitely both on board with the fact that having a VA can really help your business. But how would you go about finding a VA? And specifically, what's your best advice on finding a VA that's going to really suit you and your business and the way you work? And I guess who you are as a person. And I know that's quite a big question, but I know you have a lot of experience. So what would you say?
That sort of VAs come in many formats. So the first is doing those exercises, writing that list. You will have a successful relationship with your VA. There are lots of different pointers on this front, but the key is to be incredibly specific with what you need done. There's no point in going to a VA and say, oh, well, I'd like to have my bookkeeping done, and I'd also like you to manage my Instagram, and I'd like you to upload my stuff on eBay. And, because the reality is that is multiple skill sets. But if you are very specific with what you need to do, you can sit them and say, this is my list of things I need done. What can you do from my list? And you can work out if those are priorities to you. And don't believe anyone who can say they can do everything, because you can't be brilliant at absolutely everything in life, but you need to work out that their skill sets align with your priorities. That's the number one key thing to do. In terms of finding a VA, ask people who are in similar industries to you. That's a really good place to go. There are lots of sort of Facebook groups to go on to that you can have a look and you can ask around. And there are hundreds of thousands of people on sort of freelance Facebook groups, and I'm sure you'll be inundated with people who are keen to talk to you. I would talk to people in your industry or who do similar things to you and ask them if they know anyone or have a referral. But remember that a VA is a very, very personal thing. So what works for somebody else might not work for you. So always have that in your back of mind. You've got lots of different opportunities when you hire a VA. You can go direct, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are lots of VAs out there who are working on a freelance basis, and you can just go to them direct. The upside of it is that you will be, they can only have a certain amount of clients, and that will be you. There are certain legal and technical things. IR35, if anyone is aware of this, is a piece of legislation coming in this year. It's been delayed. You have to be very, very careful if you are employing a VA one-on-one like that you're employing a freelancer, that you are not their sole employer. I'm not going to go into IR35 because you'll all, fall asleep on it, but just be very careful that if you are employing someone for a certain amount of hours, that they can demonstrate that they've got a number of other clients, because otherwise you might find that you fall foul of IR35 and you're deemed their employer.
Okay, before we do move on from that point, is there a certain number of hours that the IR35 covers? Because I'm familiar with IR35. It's a bit mouthful, isn't it? So, for example, if someone's doing sort of 5 hours a month, let's say 10 hours a month, I'm assuming that would count as part-time. Yeah. But is there a sort of a limit at which point people are going to start looking at you and saying you're actually this person's employer?
There absolutely is, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give advice on this.
No problem.
As a rule of thumb, if you are employing someone on a weekly basis for a set number of hours, and those hours are more than, if you've got somebody for 1 hour a week, quite frankly, it's going to be hard for anyone to argue that you are their main employer. But if you were employing somebody for a day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but in a freelance capacity, the reality is you need to be comfortable that you are not their main source of income. As a rule of thumb, I would say that's probably quite a good place to start, because if it is that you are their significant employer, then they should probably have some employment rights from you. That's the basis. It's good legislation. The basis of it is that that freelancers don't miss out on employment rights. So just be mindful if you're starting to get to that place where you're employing someone for 20 hours a week. Quite frankly, they are an employee, aren't they? So there's a sort of a certain moral code to it. But if you're having, a handful of hours, a month, then you're not in the kind of space that you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to sort of go down that rabbit hole. I just felt that just in case anyone heard that and sort of immediately started worrying about what that meant, at least hopefully we've put some minds at rest. That because I think for most of us, the hours we're going to be looking at are going to be, I think, not even a part-time job, but
and that is totally fine. You'll be absolutely fine. And if it's on a monthly basis, that's absolutely fine. If you've got 2-3 hours a week, even if you're doing a day a week, if your VA is very active, and you're one of 20 clients, it's neither here nor there. You're not their main employer, and it's not something to worry about. But it is something that once you start venturing into this world of like getting people to help you virtually and remotely and on a freelance basis, it is something that is definitely worth it.
Okay, well, thank you, and sorry for taking you off track.
No, don't worry at all. Oh God, I could talk about IR35 for hours. The other thing actually, and it sort of does lead into it, is the other option is to obviously use the agency, of which we are in essence we're an agency, even though all our VAs work for us, SpareMyTime, and we have clients. Effectively, it's an agency type model. And the benefit of an agency type model is IR35. It's our responsibility as an agency to make sure that we are managing that. But also, it is the diversity of skill sets. So if you have an individual VA, which can be fantastic, you can build a wonderful relationship with them. The reality is that you are also exposed to their skills gaps, just as you're exposed to your own skills gaps, on the basis that everybody can't do everything, they can't be brilliant at everything, you're exposed to their skills gaps. On the model that we work, or you can get an agency who will find you a VA, which will help with that matching, so that worry of who do I need, where do I start, are we going to be a good skills match, are we going to be a good personality match, because that's another really big thing. It's a very, very personal relationship with somebody who is helping you with your business or your personal life, or it's a very close relationship that you have. So it's personalities do play a big role. So you can have somebody who will actually go and find you, a bit like a recruitment agent, or you can have agencies such as ours where we have a number of VAs, and whilst you will have your own VA who is your point of contact, if they find that they have a skills gap, they can then reach into the group and say, my client has got this problem, or this is what the issue we're looking to address right now. Has anyone come across it? And there's a skills share. So that is another option out there for you. The final option, and this is the only one that I would say just be a little bit wary of, is going abroad for your VAs, which is very popular, going to somewhere where you will be able to employ someone for not a lot of money. These can work very, very well. I'm not going to diss it on the quality front or anything like that. The only thing I would say, if you are in a product type business or you have customer service as part of the role, just really make sure that the person that you decide to employ has a cultural understanding of your client base, because can be a lot missed in a lack of cultural understanding. And if you're looking for somebody to help you with your customer relations, you need to have somebody who understands exactly what that entails. So that would be the only thing I'd say to watch out for on that front.
That's good advice. Thank you. I guess, whoever you choose to work with, wherever they're based, they need to have a good understanding of who your customer is.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So let's say, so how, so once you found a VA to work with, what's some advice you've got on how you can have a really good, productive working relationship? I suppose knowing what you want from that person is a good first step. Is there anything else that you can do either ahead of bringing someone on, or especially particularly in the early stages, to just make sure that you both get what you need out of it?
Well, to be incredibly clear, you need to be clear, and this is the whole entire time, this never stops, to be very good at communication, and to be very clear. The more precise your instructions are, the better a job your VA can do. And it's like, this is the same in life with anything, isn't it? If you give very clear, concise instructions, which people can follow, then you're going to get exactly the result that you want. the reality is it doesn't always work that way, doesn't it? You're likely to be in a bit of a rush and go, do you think you could could you sort out that customer who asked us this question? And you'll put a lot of you need them to be very proactive. The reality is, don't try and jump to that stage straight away. There's no way that somebody can understand your business as soon as you hit go. So write them a detailed list of the tasks in general you would like them to do. Write them the systems that you use, and ask them if they've got experience in those systems. Explain to them if there's any other systems you'd like them to have a look at while they're doing it, so just so that they have that kind of general overview. The amount of time that you put in at the beginning towards educating your VA, you will win that time back in the long run, because they will be in a better position to be able to hit the ground running. If suddenly every 2 weeks you're having to give them a bit more information and sort of drip feed it, they're never going to get the whole picture, and it's going to take them until you've finished giving them all the information, however many weeks that might take, to be up to speed. If you sit down, have however long it's going to take, with some detailed notes that they can then refer back to, or have a Zoom meeting and record the call so that they can go back into it. They're brilliant. There's so much fantastic technology nowadays, but have a point that they can go back and they can refer back to what you've asked them to do, because it just gives them something to fall back on and make sure that they can deliver the job to your expectations. Other than that, communication is absolutely the number one way of getting a great result from your VA.
Amazing, thank you. So just before we finish up, Melissa, what is your number one piece of advice for someone looking to work with a VA? And it's possibly something you've already covered, and that's fine, but what would be the one takeaway you'd want people to have?
Just keep talking to them. Don't leave them to go off on a spiral. Just keep talking to them, ask for updates, be very precise in when you want work returned to you, give deadlines, just be very clear with your communication.
That's great, thank you. And finally, Melissa, where can people find more about you and SpareMyTime and all the services that you and your VAs offer?
Well, we've got our website, which is SpareMyTime.com, but I'm very active on Instagram at SpareMyTime, and I'm always sharing business tips, productivity tips on there. So come and say hi there. I've always got something to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I will link through to everything in the show notes as well to make it super easy for people to find you. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. I think this is really valuable. Thank you.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation with Melissa. As always, if you have a second to rate and review the show, that would be fantastic. And please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any of the fantastic interviews we've got coming up. So thank you again for being here. Really hope you enjoyed it, and speak with you next week. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.